Has this ever happened to you? When a woman says something sharp, almost playful, but beneath her words you feel the weight of something deeper, a quiet examination of who you are. She does not raise her voice. She does not openly accuse, but with a glance, a silence, or a question that seems harmless, she presses against the boundaries of your character. In that moment, it is not her words that matter most. It is your response. For it is here that the ancient struggle between appearance and essence unfolds, the timeless dance between the masculine will and the feminine test of it. A woman's test is rarely about the surface. It is not about the trivial moment, the misplaced object, the forgotten detail. It is a probe, often unconscious, into the architecture of your soul. Jung would have called it the stirrings of the anima, the feminine unconscious searching for stability in the masculine frame. Seneca would have seen it as the trial of temper, a chance to measure whether a man is ruled by external events or by the empire within. And Epictetus, in his uncompromising severity, would have reminded you that the insult itself is nothing. The interpretation you assign to it is everything. Most men collapse under this subtle weight. They protest, explain, defend, or lash out, revealing not strength, but fragility. They believe the test is about facts, when in truth it is about presence. The woman does not truly care whether you forgot the small detail. She is watching to see whether your center remains unshaken. Every word, every pause, every silence is a mirror in which she studies whether you stand as a man who commands himself, or whether you are merely tossed about by circumstance. Consider the psychology beneath this. A woman tests not always because she wishes to harm, but because she longs to trust. Trust is not born from sweetness, from empty promises, from a mask of constant charm. Trust is born from witnessing a man remain sovereign in the storm. Her unconscious whispers, "If I push here, will he break? If I pull here, will he fall? If the world grows heavy, can I lean on him, or must I carry the weight alone?" She will never phrase it this way, but the feminine essence is drawn to the masculine ground that does not tremble beneath her feet. And you, hearing these words now, must ask yourself, when she presses against your calm with doubt, suspicion, or even playful cruelty, do you meet it with steadiness, or do you betray yourself by scrambling to prove your worth? The test is not about her, it is about your own shadow. The fragile ego that fears being unloved, the ancient wound that begs for validation. Until you master this, you remain a prisoner of her moods, forever bending under the weight of her shifting winds. The Stoics taught that no man owns another's opinion, another's approval, another's fleeting affection. What belongs to you is only your reasoned choice, your disciplined response, your command over your inner citadel. And yet, here lies the paradox. When you release the desperate need to win her approval, when you let go of the childish urge to be liked at all costs, she feels drawn to you more deeply. The test was never meant to be passed through compliance. It is passed through indifference to the outcome, through a calm certainty that your worth is not diminished by her judgment. Imagine, then, the archetype of the Stoic man under trial. She raises her voice. He listens but does not flinch. She withholds affection. He does not grovel, but continues his path with clarity. She mocks him, perhaps lightly, perhaps cruelly. He does not repay with anger, nor with false laughter, but with a quiet strength that says, "Your words are yours. My soul remains mine." This is not coldness. It is clarity. It is not arrogance. It is sovereignty. And it is precisely in this clarity that she feels the paradoxical safety to surrender. For only the man who cannot be shaken is the man who can truly be trusted. You may believe that love should be easy, that affection should flow without trial. But the unconscious does not move in such simple patterns. A woman tests not because she despises, but because she yearns for assurance. Like a ship pressing against the anchor to be sure it will hold, she pushes against your presence to be certain it is real. And if you break, if you rage, if you crumble, if you beg, then the anchor proves false, and she drifts away into deeper waters, seeking ground that does not give way beneath her. So hear this with clarity. The test is not the enemy. It is the summons. It is life itself asking whether you will live as a boy, tossed about by every external wave, or as a man, rooted in the unshakable bedrock of your own reason and discipline. In every test lies the mirror of your soul. What you see reflected back, fear, anger, or calm sovereignty, reveals more about you than her words ever could. When a woman tests a man, the scene is rarely theatrical. It is quiet, almost invisible to the untrained eye. A delay in her response, a sharp comment delivered with a smile. A sudden withdrawal of warmth that once seemed constant. To the man still ruled by the boy within, these moments ignite panic. He scrambles for explanations, tries to patch the silence with nervous words, or bends further into performance, desperate to regain what feels lost. Yet to the man who has walked through shadow and stood face to face with himself, these same moments are not traps, but revelations. They are the places where he proves, not to her, but to life itself, that he cannot be unseated from his throne within. This is the first secret of such tests. They are not about you and her alone. They are the theater of a deeper archetype, one that Jung might have called the dance of the anima and animus. The feminine essence does not move in straight lines, does not seek simple logic or sterile certainty. It seeks flow, rhythm, the heartbeat of something alive. And so, when she presses against your boundaries, it is not cruelty, it is inquiry. She is asking without words, does your strength flow from borrowed armor, or is it etched into the marrow of your being? And here, the Stoics offer clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man must be like the rock against which the waves continually break. Yet it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it. The wave is her test. The rock is your presence. The fury is not truly hers. It is the storm within your own chest, the storm that reveals whether you are servant to your ego or master of your mind. If you rage, the wave has conquered you. If you beg, the water has worn you down. But if you remain steady, watching the tide rise and fall with equanimity, you embody the rock that cannot be moved. This steadiness is not indifference in the shallow sense. It is not the brittle coldness of a man who has shut down his heart, nor the arrogance of one who refuses to feel. True steadiness is alive, attentive, aware. It is the man who listens deeply, yet does not lose himself. He meets her shifting winds, not with resistance, nor with collapse, but with the quiet fire of someone who knows that nothing outside him defines his worth. This is the masculine that calls forth devotion, not through force, but through gravity. To understand why, one must descend into the unconscious. In every man lies the shadow, the boy who once feared rejection, who learned to perform for love, who grew addicted to approval. When she tests you, that shadow is stirred. He rises whispering, "Do something before she leaves. Fix this before she sees you're not enough." The weak man obeys that voice. He grovels, he explains, he surrenders his dignity to hold on to her gaze. But the man who has looked into his shadow with unflinching eyes does not obey. He knows that love purchased through fear is no love at all. He allows the test to come and allows it to pass without betraying his inner law. Ask yourself, how often have you mistaken her silence for rejection when it was only a mirror of your own insecurity? How often have you fought her words when the true battle was within your chest? The Stoic man sees through the veil. He knows that her test cannot touch the essence of who he is, and so he does not respond with performance, but with being. Not with frantic gestures, but with calm rootedness. Not with the hunger to prove, but with the serenity of one who already knows. And paradoxically, it is here, in the space where you least seek validation, that validation arrives. For a woman does not long to be obeyed. She longs to rest, and she cannot rest in the arms of a man who is enslaved by her moods. She can only rest in the presence of a man who is free. Your calm grants her permission to relax her own storms, to trust that she is safe, not because you bend, but because you remain. The test, then, is not a trap to resent. It is the fire through which the steel of your character is revealed. Do you collapse into ashes, or do you emerge tempered, unbreakable, sovereign? Each moment of trial is not about her approval. It is about your becoming. She is not your enemy. She is the unwitting hand of fate, sculpting you into the man who cannot be broken. The test grows sharper in its subtleties. She may challenge you with a question that feels unfair, delivered not to seek truth, but to observe your posture under strain. She may withdraw affection at the very moment you lean in, not because she wishes to punish you, but because she longs to know whether your desire for her is stronger than your discipline within yourself. She may mock you with light cruelty, measuring whether you bleed from shallow cuts. All of this unfolds not in the logic of the conscious mind, but in the deep waters of instinct where the feminine psyche searches for safety. A man unrooted will mistake these moments for betrayal. He will label her tests as manipulations, as proof of malice, as games designed to harm him. But the Stoic man perceives beyond appearances. He recognizes that even in her sharpest test lies a deeper yearning, the longing to rest in the presence of one who cannot be swayed by fleeting storms. Her testing is not cruelty. It is faith in disguise. It is the faith that perhaps, somewhere, she has found the man who will not collapse. This is why you must confront not her, but yourself. Every test she brings illuminates the fractures within your being. The anger that rises too quickly reveals a wound left untended. The fear of abandonment uncovers the child, still crying for recognition. The urge to control or retaliate betrays the insecurity that you are not enough. To master her test is not to silence her, but to silence the boy within you, who demands constant reassurance. It is to step fully into the masculine archetype that commands respect by its very presence. Jung spoke of individuation, the process by which one integrates the unconscious and emerges whole. A woman's testing, though often painful, is one of the crucibles of individuation for a man. For in those moments, you meet your own shadow reflected in her eyes. She is not merely asking, "Can I trust you?" She is forcing you to ask yourself, "Can I trust me?" If you cannot endure her doubt without losing yourself, how will you endure the trials of life itself? If her shifting moods can unseat you, what will you do when death, loss, and betrayal test your spirit in ways no lover ever could? This is where Stoicism cuts to the marrow. The discipline of Epictetus was never about enduring insult for the sake of pride. It was about liberation from bondage to external things. To remain unmoved under her testing gaze is to rehearse the greater art of remaining unmoved under fortune's blows. Her silence is your training ground for the silence of fate. Her withdrawal is practice for the emptiness life will someday hand you. Each moment she tests you is not a battle against her, but a lesson from the gods asking, will you remain a free man, or will you sell your soul for comfort? Understand this. When you pass such a test, you do not simply win her respect. You awaken something within her deeper than admiration. You awaken devotion. For the feminine longs to find a place where she can surrender, where she can soften without fear. She may resist you, she may fight you, she may test you. But if you stand firm, she feels what she cannot articulate. Here is a man I cannot topple. Here is a man in whom I can rest. And when she feels this, her testing subsides. Not because you crushed it, but because you fulfilled it. The test, then, is the hidden gift. It strips away illusion and reveals whether your strength is real. Without it, you might live your life as a hollow figure, praised by flatterers, deceived by your own charm. With it, you are forced to see yourself clearly. And if you stand, unbroken, you emerge with something greater than her approval. You emerge with self-respect, forged in fire. For no man is truly free until he has faced trial and remained sovereign within himself. There is another layer to this trial, one that most men never recognize. A woman's testing does not always come in the form of confrontation or sharpness. Sometimes it arrives as absence, the absence of her warmth, the absence of her words, the absence of her attention. It is in these moments, perhaps more than any other, that the unprepared man begins to unravel. He chases, he demands answers, he interprets her distance as doom, and in his panic, he betrays his own sovereignty. The tragedy is not that she pulled away, but that he could not remain whole in the silence she left behind. But silence, to the Stoic, is not a void to be feared. It is the arena of self-mastery. When she withdraws, when she grows cool, when she no longer offers the easy affirmation that once fed your ego, you are being asked, is your worth built on her constant gaze, or does it stand on ground untouched by another's moods? If you collapse in her absence, then you were never strong in her presence. If you chase, you expose the hollowness of your confidence. Yet if you remain rooted, calm, steady, you reveal that you are nourished not by the changing winds of her affection, but by the inexhaustible source within. Jung described the anima as the gateway between a man's conscious mind and his deeper unconscious. When she tests you, it is often your anima that stirs, projecting onto her the fears and desires you have not yet faced. Her withdrawal awakens your abandonment wound. Her sharp words stir your unhealed shame. Her silence confronts your fear of invisibility. You believe you are fighting her, but in truth, you are facing yourself. Her test is simply the mirror. The shadow it awakens is your own. This is why Stoicism is not the art of repression, but the art of sovereignty. To repress is to pretend the shadow does not exist, to deny the wound and hide it beneath armor. But sovereignty is different. It is to see the wound without flinching, to feel the sting of her silence, the ache of her doubt, the pull of your own insecurity, and yet remain unmoved in your choice. You may feel the storm, but you do not become the storm. You let the emotion pass through you, like wind through a mountain valley, while the mountain itself does not bend. Imagine her standing before you, eyes sharp, voice cool, her affection withdrawn. Most men in that moment would contort themselves into shapes, pleading for the return of her warmth. But you, the Stoic man, need not. You listen, but you do not cling. You feel, but you do not beg. You answer with clarity when clarity is required, with silence when silence is stronger. And whether she rages, withdraws, or tests again, you remain unbroken. For your soul does not belong to her whim. It belongs to the eternal law within you. And here lies the paradox once more. It is precisely when you no longer need her approval that she feels drawn to you most powerfully. The feminine essence longs to find a man who cannot be toppled, a man whose dignity is not up for purchase, a man who can stand unshaken even in her storms. When she sees that you do not falter in her absence, that you do not scramble in her silence, that you do not break under her doubt, something ancient awakens in her. She realizes, this is a man who does not need me to complete him. And because he does not need me, I can finally trust him. Thus, every silence is not rejection, but initiation. Every withdrawal is not loss, but the chance to meet yourself in the fire. And every test, when faced with Stoic clarity, transforms not only her perception of you, but your perception of yourself. You become not the boy who fears abandonment, but the man who can walk through absence without losing his center. And in that transformation lies the essence of freedom, the realization that you are whole, with or without her. There are times when her tests take on the shape of contradiction. She may say she desires strength, but reacts against it when she feels its weight. She may claim to want honesty, yet challenge you when truth cuts too deeply. These contradictions are not evidence of deceit. They are expressions of the feminine psyche, vast and shifting like the ocean. To expect her to move in straight lines is to misunderstand her essence entirely. She is not logic encased in stone. She is fluidity, unpredictability, and mystery. And it is precisely this mystery that calls forth the masculine capacity for steadiness. A man who resents these contradictions will spend his life in constant frustration, forever trying to make the ocean obey the rules of the land. But the Stoic man sees them differently. He does not demand consistency from the sea. He accepts its tides and responds with calm navigation. When she tests him with contradiction, he does not fight to pin her down into coherence. Instead, he rests in the coherence of his own being. He lets her words rise and fall, knowing that beneath them lies not malice, but instinct, not chaos, but searching. This is why the Stoic response is not withdrawal, nor domination, nor appeasement. It is presence. Presence is the flame that neither blinds with rage, nor flickers with weakness. Presence is the quiet force that says, I hear you, I see you, but I am not consumed by you. It is this presence that turns contradiction into harmony, that allows the feminine to feel both free to move and safe to rest. Yet presence cannot be faked. If a man attempts to perform calm, while inside he is trembling, the mask will crack, and she will sense the falseness. Women are attuned to the subtle vibrations of authenticity. They feel the fracture in your tone, the tremor in your body, the hunger in your eyes. To pass her test is not to act stoic, but to be stoic. To cultivate within yourself the discipline that does not need her reaction to define you. To root yourself in values so deep that no shifting mood can uproot you. And so, every test is a summons to depth. When she contradicts herself, it is your chance to reveal that you are not ruled by surface logic, but by inner law. When she pulls close and then pushes away, it is your chance to embody patience without losing clarity. When she mocks, It is your chance to demonstrate that your dignity is untouchable. These moments are not distractions from love. They are the furnace in which love is purified of weakness and revealed as strength. Understand, too, that the man who cannot endure these tests without breaking will never awaken her deepest devotion. For devotion does not grow from comfort. It grows from awe. She must feel something in you that is beyond her control, something she cannot topple, something that commands respect without demanding it. Only then does her testing turn into trust, and her trust into surrender. The woman who tests is, in truth, the woman who longs to find the man who cannot be tested out of himself. Thus, the Stoic response is not a tactic, it is a transformation. It is the lifelong labor of becoming the man who no longer trembles at the edge of her moods because he has already faced and mastered the storms within. She is not your enemy. Her contradictions are not attacks. They are the waves through which you discover whether you are the rock or only sand, pretending to be stone. There comes a moment in every test where the air feels heavy, where silence itself presses down with the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. She looks at you not with softness, but with calculation, measuring, waiting, watching. In that gaze, a man who has not yet met himself will feel the ground slip away. He will rush to fill the silence with promises, excuses, or desperate affirmations. Yet every word betrays him further, for the more he struggles to prove, the more he reveals that he does not believe in his own worth. The Stoic man does the opposite. He embraces the silence as if it were his ally. He lets it breathe. He understands that silence does not need to be broken, that tension does not always need to be resolved. Instead of scrambling to convince her, he remains at ease within himself. His calm becomes the unspoken answer. I do not fear what you withhold, because my center does not depend on it. In that moment, he reveals something rare, the ability to remain whole even when stripped of validation. This is the fourth shape of her test, to see whether you collapse under the void of approval. She is not always testing your strength against her fire. Sometimes she tests it against her absence. The question is the same. Will you bend to gain her affirmation, or will you stand without it? For a woman may admire a man who gives her everything, but she can only revere the man who does not dissolve when she withholds. Here, modern psychology intertwines with the Stoic path. Trauma often whispers in the ear of men, abandoned in youth. Do not let her go silent. Chase her before she disappears like they all did. That wounded boy still hides inside, desperate to hold on at any cost. When she tests, she awakens him. And if you obey him, you betray the man you were meant to become. But if you recognize his voice, honor his pain, and yet choose differently, if you stand as a man rather than collapse into the boy, you transcend the cycle. Her test becomes your liberation. This is the paradox of the feminine. She will challenge your calm, press against your confidence, and withhold her warmth. Not because she wants you to break, but because she wants to see that you cannot. The test is not cruelty, but a search for something immovable. And when she finds that you are not desperate for her, that your soul remains steady, with or without her affection, something in her melts. She does not say it. She may not even consciously know it, but she feels it in her body. The rare safety of a man who is not enslaved to her moods. Think of the Stoics who taught that the world is indifferent, and yet a man may live in harmony with it by mastering himself. In love, as in life, the storms are inevitable, But storms do not destroy mountains. They reveal which ones were mountains and which ones were mere heaps of dust. Her test is the storm. You are to decide whether you will be the mountain, and when you stand, she does not resent you for it. She reveres you. The woman who once tested will now trust, for she has discovered that your strength is not a performance, but an essence. This, then, is the deeper wisdom. Do not fear her test. Do not resent it. Welcome it, for it shows you to yourself. Each trial strips away the false layers and asks, are you sovereign or are you still bound? Each silence teaches you to befriend solitude. Each contradiction teaches you to honor clarity within yourself. Each withdrawal teaches you that love is not possession. Each challenge teaches you that strength is not dominance, but steadiness. And so, when she tests you again, as she will, as all women do, remember this. The test is not the end of love. It is the gate through which true love begins. The test always culminates in a final crucible, one that strips away all pretense and exposes the raw core of your being. It is not a single moment, but a pattern, an accumulation of storms she has summoned around you. If you have bent at every gust of wind, if you have surrendered your sovereignty in small concessions, if you have lived as though her moods are the axis of your worth, the final storm will scatter what little remains of your ground. But if you have stood, not cold but clear, not rigid but rooted, then this final test does not undo you. It anoints you. At its essence, her testing is not about control. It is about revelation. She is not asking, can I dominate you? She is asking, can I trust you? And trust, to the feminine, is not given in comfort. It is given in awe. When she sees that you cannot be broken by her storms, she discovers that she may finally rest in your calm. For devotion is not born of ease. It is born of encountering the immovable, the eternal, the sovereign presence that does not waver. Modern psychology echoes this truth. A woman's testing often activates a man's deepest attachment wounds, the fear of abandonment, the hunger for approval, the terror of invisibility. To survive her trials, you must confront these wounds, not with denial, but with discipline. You must become the father to your inner child, the king to your inner boy, the master of the restless self that once sought salvation in others. Without this inner work, no outer calm will last. But with it, you become untouchable, not because you feel nothing, but because you are no longer enslaved by feeling. The Stoics called this freedom the only true good, the power to choose one's response regardless of external fortune. Her test is fortune in miniature. It is the small storm that prepares you for greater tempests. And when you meet it with composure, you are not merely proving yourself to her. You are proving yourself to life. You are saying, I am not a reed bending in every wind. I am the rock. I am the mountain. I am the soul that remains sovereign even when the world conspires to break me. And here lies the culmination. The woman who once tested becomes the woman who surrenders. The storms that once seemed endless give way to calm, not because she has changed her essence, but because you have revealed yours. In her eyes, you become not the man who needed her to affirm him, but the man who affirms himself. And such a man is irresistible, not because he seeks power, but because he embodies it. The final paradox of the Stoic path in love is this: when you no longer need to win, you cannot lose. When you no longer chase, you are never abandoned. When you no longer fear rejection, you are always chosen. And when you live not to please, but to remain true, you embody the rarest strength of all, freedom. So let her test, let her probe, doubt, contradict, or withdraw. Meet it all with the calm of the eternal flame that cannot be extinguished, and know that in the end, it is not she who decides your worth. It is you. For the man who has mastered himself has already passed every test.